All right, we're
It's
back on.
happening. Here we go.
Here we go.
Welcome back to another
Welcome
episode.
back. Yeah, this is episode 3 now. Um, so if you've made it this far and you've listened to the previous two, thank you. And if you're just joining us for the first time, also thank you. Welcome to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification. These come out Tuesdays in the morning. Um, And if you're watching on Spotify or any of the other podcast places, make sure to leave us a rating and review.
Oh yeah.
Um, Enough of all that stuff. Let's get into it. I think we got some good questions for today,
Let's do it.
and some good stuff to talk about.
Cool.
So, the first thing I wanted to talk about, just because it's a little bit fun, what music do you listen to when you train?
Ooh, good question. Good question. So currently,
Yeah,
currently I'm listening to like some EDM-y like house kind of stuff. So not a
yeah,
lot of like words, but it's very like
more bouncy,
yeah, much more
bouncy stuff,
bouncy. The vibe is much more like energetic.
right?
Kind of like waiting for the beat to drop and then you start ripping things kind of
And
a
then you
thing.
start ripping sets, yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to like hardcore like emo like kind of
Right.
stuff like
Yeah.
um but like sometimes I just like get a headache towards the end of my workout, so I
Yeah, you go.
sparingly now.
I also um go through some sessions where I listen to some really hardcore stuff, and then I kind of got to back off every once in a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, I go through really weird phases with like my music that I train to. I'll go through times where I'm like, I need the death metal,
Mm,
and I gotta go to some demonic place
yeah.
to rip some sets. But then, a week later, I'll be listening to like Hannah Montana. Like,
Damn.
like sometimes, when I train, I just like to have some happy music.
Yeah,
Like sometimes it's good to just have some good vibes in the gym
for sure.
and just like not have everything be so intense all the time.
Yeah.
And so I go through so many different ranges of music.
Yeah.
Right now I listen to a little bit more pop kind of stuff where it's just more upbeat, kind of happy kind of stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
Makes you
Dude,
feel good. Sometimes you can like hip hop around with it. You start dancing in the gym a little bit.
yeah.
It's like, not everything needs to be intense all the time. It's good to have fun in the gym.
Completely agree. Yeah, like the headbanging stuff, it
Yeah.
can. I feel like it takes a lot out of you, like not just physically, but like it's like kind of a lot to like
Yeah.
listen to, and it's like it's pretty stimulating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally thinking about you like repping 4 plates, just listening to Hannah Montana. It's the climb.
Yeah, man. You just I don't know. Sometimes I think it's really fun to just like float through different music genres. I
I
don't.
thought the hip hop scene was kind of fun because like I knew somewhere I don't really listen to hip hop anymore,
Right.
but I thought the hip hop scene was kind of fun because I'm like jamming out to my workout, but at the same time I like know a couple words so I can like I don't
Right.
know,
Yeah,
get
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit more into it.
Yeah. Sometimes it is fun to just like get fully into a song and you're just like along with it. You're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
going.
I want to start listening to some System of a Down when I get
Yeah,
in it.
that's a
I
good
think
one.
that's gonna be like my next couple
Yeah, some
songs.
more not classic rock, but a little bit more alternative rock kind of stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that's there's a playlist I'll have to share with you. It's a pretty good one for like that kind of vibe.
Yeah,
I
definitely do.
use that a lot. But even sometimes like I'm not even a big country music person. Like I never listen to country music. Sometimes I'll throw that on.
I am an anything but country kind of guy.
Yeah.
I listen
Like
to jazz before I listen to country.
jazz in the
And I
gym would be
actually don't mind jazz. I like jazz. Yeah.
um But yeah, I like floating through different genres. There's some days where I need to switch to music that I don't know any of it.
Mm,
Just so that it can kind of just drown everything out.
mm,
I can
mm.
focus on my set and not focus on the words
Yeah.
that are playing in my head. Because like if I play songs that I know too well, I'll end up just like singing the song the whole
And
time.
like not in your set.
Right, exactly. And then I'm not in the set.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I hop genres all the time, is because I just keep trying to find music that I can listen to and I can kind of vibe to, but I don't necessarily know all the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I'm fortunate enough, I guess, in that aspect of literally not knowing like anything about music, honestly.
Oh,
Like if someone like played a song for me and I could pick up on it if I've heard that song before, definitely, or like probably like a few words in it. But like some people are like, yo, like this guy and like this song that he wrote, and I'm like, no, I don't.
no,
But if I
no,
heard it, yeah, and then they like play it, and I'm
right.
like, oh yeah, I totally know
Yeah,
that,
I know
100%.
this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's like kind
I've never been big on like following people's names or song names or any of that stuff, but
of,
I am a big music person,
yeah.
and
Mm,
um, I'm pretty good at like learning songs
yeah.
and their words and all of that. So I like to switch it up. It's
Yeah.
fun. It
I
keeps
guess
it.
if I was listening to like some old school like Drake or like old school Kanye or Eminem or like Lil Wayne or something, I'd probably be able to sing along with that stuff
Right.
because like that was like my like growing up. That's kind of like the stuff I listened to.
Yeah. Yep. Um, so cool, man. Yeah, music is fun.
Yeah,
Um,
back when they were cool.
it's so funny. You can listen to so many different things, um, and still lift.
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever sends you to your happy place.
Yeah, exactly. And your music can kind of reflect your mood going in. You can use music to help kind of channel
Hmm.
yourself and really dig deeper into a set. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of utilize music within your sessions to kind of bring the most out of you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that's why when using death metal, I know I'm trying to channel like a deeper side of things that are just like balls to the wall. I'm gonna die in this set kind of thing.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, but there's also some days where I just gotta have a good time in the gym, and having a good time ends up or results in doing better
Yeah,
because I'm not so stuck in my head, right?
definitely,
So
definitely.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but and this is a total jab at World Gym, but my gym has the worst music.
Dude, I think all gyms have
All
the
right, I'm
worst
glad it's not
music.
yours. Dude,
You
yeah.
remember the Cirque in Rockport?
Yeah.
Dude, that was bad.
Better than my gym, bro. I'm not even kidding you. Mariah Carey is like playing on the freaking thing, like just like trying to soothe everyone, like
Right?
dude, and I'm like trying to get into a solid set here. It's really hard.
Yeah. So where I train now, um, we have total control over the speakers.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times by the time I'm there, I'm one of the last people there.
Hmm.
And so
That's kind of
like
nice.
just yeah, it is really nice. Just yesterday, I just took over the speakers and was just like blasting music. It was so
Yeah.
fun.
That's
It was
that's
fun.
something I've never experienced before, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, come take a trip.
Yeah, I definitely should. Yeah. We're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, we will. We'll get a session
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, we definitely will.
All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about, this one, if you haven't experienced it and it's not a normal thing, you're gonna think it's really weird. But I think there's a lot more people that this relates to. When you train calves, does it give you chills?
This is gonna sound really fucking weird, Brady, but I kind of gotta poop after I do my calves.
Dude,
That sounds
okay.
so weird, but like
Like,
that is the
okay,
sensation I get.
God, because that's what I'm saying. It's like that, and that's the exact feeling of the chills. It's like when your stomach is upset and it sends like chills through your body, that is exactly the feeling.
I'm really glad that I'm not the only one. And if anyone is listening to this and you feel the same way, please tell us that you
Like,
feel the same
please
way.
let
It's
us
like,
know.
please share. Yeah. Or if we should maybe get that checked out.
Maybe. Can we put that on a t-shirt?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Oh my god. Yeah. Every time I train calves, it's just like you get a couple reps in, it starts to burn, and then just straight chills. And
Yeah.
it's like, why is this a thing? What is the connection there?
Yeah, I don't know. I
'Cause
honestly I have no idea. Like, how are
it
my
doesn't
calves connected to that
my
feeling?
my my sphincter. What the hell?
Yeah, dude. Like, literally, I feel like I have to poop after, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
But it goes away like after I'm done with my
right.
set.
As soon as you're
But
done.
then, yeah, it is a weird feeling though.
Yeah.
Definitely weird.
Like it doesn't happen with any other muscle group.
No, yeah, definitely does not happen on bicep curls. Does not happen for triceps.
But it's just there's something about just this
Yeah,
movement
guess so. I don't know.
that I don't know. Okay, I'm so glad that like
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
that was one of those in and out. Crucial that we covered
Yeah,
that.
I think more people needed to recognize that that was normal.
Yeah. And when you get that feeling, keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. If you're getting that feeling, you know you're working them right.
Exactly. We're gonna have to look into the science behind that.
Yeah, I definitely got to
We'll
look
get back
deeper
to you
into
in
that. That's
episode 4.
that is funny. Okay. I I just wanted to touch on that cuz I thought it would be a funny thing. Okay.
And I like how you use the word chills for that. Much better. And I was just like, nah, I gotta poop.
Nah, I just got shit, man.
Yeah. I've said that to a couple other people, I feel like, and they like looked at me sideways, and I was like, all right, man, I guess it's just
Okay.
me. All
This is
right.
no,
No,
okay.
just me. All right.
We're on the same boat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This one will be a longer one because we can get pretty deep into this. But
Let's do it.
um, right now we're recording this. It's beginning of November, and so it is prime time to start talking about the holiday seasons. And what comes with the holiday seasons is a lot of food.
Mhm.
So what is your approach or advice moving through the holidays? Um, we'll start with a diet phase to get through the holidays while sticking to, trying to stick to your diet, but not trying to be, that asshole that brings chicken and rice to Christmas dinner, right?
Yeah.
Um, what's your approach, or what's
There's
your advice there?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of avenues we can go with that.
Yeah,
Like, I guess the overall thing would be to look at the grand scheme of things. Like, no one wants to be that like super tight butthole kind of guy where they have to bring their meals to their family, to their family outings and like stuff like that, to like, like Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners or things like that.
right,
But I think there is something that should be said about like your goals and making sure that you're staying on track towards them and that you're not just completely like letting go of everything for like
right,
that week or week and a half leading up into it and then bombing it. I think a solid, maybe something that we could talk about is just getting better at eyeballing things, like getting really good and at eyeballing things and kind of preparing yourself to understand what's in front of you on your plate when it comes time for you to start eating.
right.
um, and kind of like auto regulating that just a little bit, like especially on that day of Thanksgiving. It's
Mhm.
like, and you're like sitting down and you have all this food in front of you. Like, you should know that, roughly kind of the amount of calories that you've accrued throughout the day so far. And this is specifically like if you're trying to tighten up and you're like in that
Right,
dieting phase. Like, I think it's really crucial to just have a good understanding of the amount of protein that you're going to have in front of you, trying to overeat that protein, maybe just a little bit during that meal so that you don't binge on the carbohydrates. When it comes to the carbohydrates, like seeing those carbs and then making sure that you're at least mitigating the amount that you would be putting on your plate
right.
as opposed to just like bombing it all on there. And then the fats would be kind of negligible as well because there's like fats pretty much thrown into almost any of those platters that you put on the table. Like if it's the chicken or the potatoes or the Brussels sprouts or the mac and cheese, like they've got some fats inside of them
Right.
already. So you don't really have to worry about like going for extra fats by any means. But definitely like staying, I think the auto regulating um, zone is a good place to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think my approach going into the holidays with all that food is, if you haven't yet, take the time to actually understand, you know, your macros, and then like what your general food groups are. So we'll take Thanksgiving, right? Pretty standard foods at Thanksgiving. You've got your Thanksgiving turkey, um, mashed potatoes, stuffing, um, probably some other stuff.
I've got hot dogs, hamburgers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's not a thing up where I am at. Okay.
Yeah, my family just doesn't care. They just grill it all.
You guys grill on Thanksgiving? Oh, so
Yeah.
okay. Well, either way, understand the foods that are going to be made,
Mm-hmm.
and then understand how they can fit into your diet,
Yeah.
right? So like turkey, protein, right? It's your protein source. Since it's turkey, it'll be a little bit higher fat than like a chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So relatively keep that in mind. But for the most part, turkey is going to be your protein source. So that should be pretty standard. I mean, if you're hard into it, where you've kind of been tracking your food, you know how much of your protein source you should be eating. So keep that standard, right?
Yeah.
Pick your protein source from the options that are in front of you, whether it's a burger or a hot dog or turkey or even ham. Try and keep that pretty standard. And then when it comes to your carbs, depending on how deep you are into your diet, just be careful with your approach. Don't overstuff on the carbs. You can also try to adjust earlier meals, right? So when we look at diet, it's not a 1 day thing. A lot more times, if you have a good coach, you're watching over, your averages over the course of the week, of the month, and making adjustments from there. So if you're going into Thanksgiving and you want to eat a lot of mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving, try to pull some of your carbs out from earlier meals in the week to try and allow yourself to have more room to add calories on that Thanksgiving meal.
Mm-hmm.
um, if you happen to be in a family that celebrates Thanksgiving meals for a week, right? Like you just have Thanksgiving with like 8 different families,
Yeah.
you know um, then it gets a little bit trickier, and at that point you got to take a look at your goals and how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
you know um, that also comes down to it is your adherence to your diet ultimately comes down to how much you care about the end
Yeah.
result. you
Yeah.
know
Plain and
so
simple.
like we can give these tips about what to do with your diet, um, but at the end of the day, if you don't care enough to follow it, you're just going to binge anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. If your resolve isn't strong enough.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but so um, going in and eating your food, just pay attention. If you have a coach that just hands you a meal plan without teaching you macros, try and take the step forward and learn the macros yourself,
Yeah.
um, or get a new coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, we can talk about coaching and meal plans in a minute. But so if you're being coached and your coach hands you a meal plan and doesn't tell you what your macros are, um, either get a new coach or start to learn macros yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And then when it comes to the Thanksgiving dinner, all you got to do is figure out what fits that your macros there. If you want to specifically have some extra food that day, make the adjustment in your earlier meals in the week.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not a day that's going to crush you. You
Hmm.
know, you just have to be aware of it coming and make the adjustment,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
So if you know you're going to eat a lot, just lower your intake earlier in the week.
Hmm.
Create a little bit of a greater deficit earlier in the week,
Hmm.
and then take the Thanksgiving meal almost like a refeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can bring up the topic of carb cycling, and if you're into that, you can kind of plan your carb cycling around your holiday meals.
Yeah.
Um, So there's a lot of different approaches to it, but most of it comes down to knowing what your macros are and finding the best way to fit them within there,
Yeah.
and then tailoring your approach to that.
Definitely. And I think that there's the auto regulation is something to definitely hinge on when it comes to like things going off plan. So like especially during the holiday seasons, like auto regulating things because you're going to be outside of your normal schedule. It's good to have an idea of what you're going to do on like if Friday's Thanksgiving and it's Monday, like you were kind of saying, you can kind of intuitively change what you're going to go about. And I think that there's a big difference between intuitive eating and auto regulation. Like I think based off of your auto regulation, it will allow you to intuitively eat a little bit better. And I feel like people think intuitive eating is like just hitting your macros, but in my opinion, intuitive eating is knowing what you've done prior in that day slash week, and then knowing what you're going to do in this next meal slash few couple maybe next days potentially. And
Yeah,
it's really like how you manipulate that stuff. So either maybe putting yourself in a slightly higher deficit in the beginning of the week leading up into this big Thanksgiving, or on Thanksgiving Day you're kind of doing something very similar but on a smaller scale where you're maybe not eating as many calories throughout the day, and then you can kind of go off, so to speak, come
right.
Thanksgiving dinner. um, and I think it's something else that we can maybe talk about is like how we can manipulate foods like during our meal to help us not eat as much. So like some of the really basic stuff is, you know, one of the suggestions that I would maybe give is to eat your protein first. Just
100%,
because
definitely.
once that goes in, it'll keep you satiated and you'll get that little um, hunger response to kind of like dampen it out just a little bit so you won't be nearly as hungry after you kind of pound that protein. And then when you move into those carbs, you won't be as likely to overeat them as opposed to just kind of starting with those carbs and just plowing through them, maybe getting a second helping, third helping, and then,
Yeah,
a little bit of protein here and there. And then the next thing would be like obviously double down on your veg. Um, that will also kind of take up a little bit of volume inside of your stomach so that your tendencies to overeat will also kind of come down there as well. Do you
yeah.
have any other like
I
suggestions on
think
top of that?
I think we also need to remember that just because you can have a second plate doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like I love Thanksgiving for a lot of reasons. But I think Thanksgiving has been given this kind of um, representation that you are supposed to eat as much food as you humanly possibly can. Right? It's like you finish your plate, you better get a second one.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, you finished a second plate, you better get a third.
Yeah, especially in like Italian families too.
Right. And so like we uh we don't do that in our daily lives.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast right now, you probably don't do that,
Or
right?
maybe you do, who knows?
Maybe you do. Um, but like I would assume that most of us, we eat our dinner, and I mean, we track all of our food now, but um, prior to tracking food, we'd eat dinner, and then we were done. Like
Yep.
we would have our plate that we made up, and then we'd be done.
Yeah.
That was great dinner, right? On Thanksgiving, we've been given this concept that we have to eat as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So remember, you don't have to do that. You can eat one plate at Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so definitely, I agree. Take down the your protein first,
Yeah.
and maybe even just to help you out a little bit, add a little bit extra. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
take
sure.
your normal protein amount and just bump it up just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, and then from there, when you're picking your carb sources, um, try to pick the denser ones, like mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes is a very dense carb source. Um, versus what's
Like white rice, maybe, or like macaroni and cheese. I don't know.
yeah, there
I'm
we go.
thinking of,
That's what I was looking for. So like
yeah.
mac and cheese, maybe decide to pass on the mac and cheese and pick something that is a little bit more of like a whole food kind of carb source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
we'll
even
slow digestion
rice is
down.
okay.
Yeah.
Rice is okay. It's one of those single ingredient foods. We eat it every day, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
generally part of probably your meal plan, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
part of your daily foods. So, the other piece to this is trying to pick foods that are going to digest properly,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so if you start going super whack with the foods that you're eating, you're probably going to feel like garbage, especially if you've been stuck to a diet for a while and you've kind of eaten the same foods. When you branch off to a bunch of other foods like mac and cheese, that's really, really, you know, oily and very bloating because of the dairy that's in it. And pasta is just like, it's a massive, very full carb source, I suppose, is a way I could put it. Um, it's not going to sit very well, especially if you've been eating a very clean diet for a long time.
Yeah.
So to come out of the holidays with everything still intact, it'd probably be best to try and stick to sources that are more similar to what you normally eat. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the turkey's going to taste better than your chicken. Enjoy that. Um,
Yeah.
your those mashed potatoes are going to taste better than your normal rice, just because it probably has some butter in it. And go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and enjoy that, right? So still enjoy your meal and enjoy that those foods taste better than they normally will.
Mm-hmm.
But don't go totally off the rails with your choices because it's probably just going to make you feel really gross,
Yeah.
and your digestion is just not going to be the same, and it'll kind of mess you up for a couple of days. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's I think we covered diet pretty well. Now
Yeah.
you're
Diet
in a
during the holidays.
surplus. Yeah, you're in a surplus. I'm in a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
What's your plan?
Yeah, so literally I'm just gonna do exactly the opposite of what we just said
Right.
outside of the protein recommendation. I mean, most likely nothing is going to change and I'm going to just treat it as a normal meal. So if you're someone who's already in a surplus and your carbohydrate recommendations per meal are pretty high, then you really won't have to worry too much about kind of overreaching because in that little I get, just to call it like it's one day, one meal where you're kind of, you're putting in a little bit of tummy work, so to speak.
Sure.
It's totally fine to kind of eat the carbohydrates that you might be potentially eating in the next meal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because, like I have like probably 2 meals after that Thanksgiving meal that I'll most likely be eating. So I could make the decision to, in the, let's call it fourth meal, I could eat the same amount of carbohydrates that I have set out for myself normally, or I could reduce the amount of carbohydrates in that meal, and then maybe the meal after that too, potentially, just depending on kind of what is good. But most likely, I'm not going to do that because it's my one day, and I'm okay with overreaching on one day, especially if things are going to go right back to normal.
Right.
So, like, I'm not really someone who goes like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm here, I'm there, up, low, high, low, high, low. Like, I'm pretty steady throughout, and you're in a very similar boat too. So, just kind of, putting in that extra little bump of cals, so to speak, really won't hurt me too much. So it's not something that I'm too concerned about. I'm going to make sure I hit my protein requirements,
Yep.
and I pretty much will assume that my carbohydrates and my fats are also going to be at or a little higher than what I'm used to.
Yeah. And
So
I think you're in a spot where that's perfectly okay. Right.
if your body
Um,
fat is below 10%,
you're probably
and
okay.
you're trying to put on some mass, yeah, you're probably okay to you have the green to go to eat during
Right.
that meal.
Yeah, you get the green to go ahead and keep putting plates, right?
Pretty much.
Just just make sure you keep throwing in protein in there,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That
know.
would be the only thing. I'm not just gonna like pile in the carbohydrates. I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna make sure that I get in my recommended protein intake because pretty much protein is the thing that you should be focusing on almost in every meal, regardless of whether or not you're in a prep or a cut.
Yeah, so it should definitely be a standard, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
You know.
definitely. Um, and then I kind of let the carbohydrates take like I guess the secondary command, and then fats I generally don't worry too much about unless I'm having a meal with like chicken in it, or if it's like a lower fat meal, then
Yeah.
I'll worry about getting in a few more fats. But like
Yeah.
outside of that, I know that the Thanksgiving dinner isn't going to be too, it's probably not going to be fat deprived
Yeah.
by any means.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, I think my approach going into the holidays, honestly, it's probably not going to be too much different from my own diet. Uh,
mhm,
other than the sources will be a little bit different. I know I'm gonna crush probably a ton of protein in the
yeah.
meal, um, just because it's a really easy opportunity to crush a ton of protein in a meal,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not cooking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, outside of that, I'm a huge mashed potato fan.
Mhm.
Which works perfectly fine because I kind of keep potatoes in my diet normally, because I just like them.
Mhm.
So probably the only thing that'll really be out of the norm will be the stuffing,
Yeah.
because I like stuffing, and I don't. Stuffing is one of those ones that I don't even know how you track it. Like,
Yeah, it is an odd one.
it's an odd one,
Yeah.
right? So I'll let that just be like its own little extra boost that I just don't kind of track.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, in terms of fat, when I try and think about my fats and what I'm using them for, a lot of it is just based on, well, once I've passed my daily needs for fats, which you only need like 30 grams of fat to function as a human.
Yeah.
Once I've passed that,
That's
I
per
think,
day.
right, per day. Not ever.
All week now.
Oh, yeah. Um, per day is I kind of think about its effect on carb intake.
Hmm.
Um, so I'll also take a look at the day, and if I have a training day on Thanksgiving and I can get into the gym, probably what I'll do is I'll train just before I go to eat.
Yeah.
So I'll get my session in, and then I'll go in and just load nutrients.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
that actually works in both a diet and a surplus. If you're gonna train on Thanksgiving, which really isn't a bad idea, is and if you're able to do it, right?
Hmm.
Train before the big meal,
Yeah.
just because your body is going to be that much more receptive to everything that you intake.
100%.
Yeah, that's actually probably my master tip for the
Yeah.
holidays
Mm-hmm.
is before you go and crush that big meal, try to get a session in,
Yeah.
you know. Um, it'll just allow you to get the most out of the food that you're taking in,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll feel a little bit less bad if you crush 3 plates.
Yeah, totally. Totally, man. It definitely does make you like that receptive sponge to kind of reallocate those nutrients that you're about to eat in that
Yeah,
big meal towards the things that you would like those nutrients to be allocated towards, which is your muscle and not your
yeah,
fat.
exactly.
Stan Efferding used to he also he is like a huge fan of 10-minute walks
Yeah.
immediately after like a meal,
Yep.
which I also do agree with that as well. So, you know,
Yes.
don't be afraid to hit a walk too after that meal. Kind of allow
Yeah.
those nutrients to kind of partition themselves
Yep.
into other areas. What was I gonna? I think yeah. So it was yeah, like basically like nothing should really change. Kind of like what you said, like other than the food groups that you're normally used to, this is really the only thing that's going to kind of be different in terms of what you have in front of yourself. Like your
Mhm.
macros are generally you should try to hit your macros no matter what. But,
Right.
you're just kind of working with different tools, so to speak, or different, choices of tools or different and now it's just kind of up to you. Like instead of chicken, we have turkey. Instead of
Yep.
rice, we have mashed potatoes. Instead of our spinach, we have broccoli or whatever whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. Um, but the overall goal should be to, with those food groups, still translate those macros right across the board to what
Yeah.
you normally eat. Um, and it can be difficult when you have like family also, which is kind of something I also wanted to talk about for like just a hot sec was
Yeah.
like the peer pressure. Like, dude, my dad is like he is like the pro of sport eating. He used to, like, dude, from like ever since I was like a little
Really?
kid, he always called it, yeah, like there'd be like the last couple bites, or like if you didn't finish a meal, or like he was done pretty much, like things were wrapped up. It's like he would still just go like at more plates. He'd like finish mom's plate, finish my plate. Well, not finish, but he'd like pick around and continue to pick around, even though he was like done. And I always was like what is like why, and I never really like didn't question it too much. I still don't, but like I just can see it for what it is. And like he always used to call it sport eating, which was just like it's a sport at that point. Like you're just
Right.
trying to see what you can do. Like sometimes you have family members that will try to push you in the direction of maybe eating more or filling your plate, or like, oh honey, you look a little small, let me give you some more, like this, that, the other. Or even alcohol too. Like alcohol, in my
Yeah.
opinion, is a big thing that gets pushed at family events. Like I'm okay with like having a beer or two, you know what I mean? Like that's okay. But like when it gets to the point where you have some goals and there are people pressing you in a direction that you don't necessarily think aligns with those goals, that can be something that can be like a potential hindrance. And it makes you feel bad when you're not like sharing something with people, or like sharing a wine with someone, or like a couple beers with the family. Like, have you had that experience, and like how do you deal with that if you have?
So I've been pretty fortunate with people understanding kind of what I do,
Mm-hmm.
which has been really nice. And I think a lot of it stems from, when I talk about what I do, I generally go pretty in depth, and when I present, topics, or I talk about bodybuilding, I don't just talk about it as, yeah, I just I'm lifting weights pretty regularly. Like I generally go in depth and I try to teach something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've found that with taking that approach, and when I try to teach them and become, the authority in the room around the topic, that they respect it a lot more. And it generally comes across that I am serious about what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I often get pushed too much. When I do, um, I've gotten pretty good at just laughing people off.
Yeah.
you know, they're just like, Well, Brady, why don't you have a drink? I'm like,
Yeah, losing
no,
out.
I'm okay, man. I'm all good. I'm good
Yeah,
right now,
yeah,
and you just kind of brush it off.
yeah,
If then they with, you know, no, 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 come on, let me get you a drink, or something along those lines, right? That's when it's totally warranted to go ahead and be like, look, I currently, I don't drink because I have this goal, and
mm,
that stands in between me and my goal.
yeah,
One, if somebody wants to push you that far, it is fully warranted to explain to somebody what your goals are and why it doesn't align with it.
mm,
And you should feel confident in telling someone, you know, why that's in between you and your goal.
yeah. And on the same coin, there is no reason to tell anyone. You don't have to justify yourself. At the same
Yeah,
time,
that too.
depending on the situation. If it's family, that's understandable. But like if someone is just not aligning with kind of what you want, fuck them. What the hell?
Yeah,
Why does that?
absolutely.
Doesn't matter. Do your thing. Put your head down and just keep going. This is not what I'm saying. Like this is not my fucking situation here. But like yesterday, my pops was like, "Yo, like the whole like election kind of thing just like kind of went down." He was like, "Yo, like we're gonna have and like stuff like that and like this that the other." And I'm like, "Yeah, like I gotta go to the gym." And he's like, "Ah, come on, like this like all this stuff just happened with the elections and stuff, like let's just like have a good time." And I was like, "Well, I know, like any like a Martian could have like flown down from space and like become president. I don't care.
Right.
I'm getting my
I
training
don't
session in
care.
today."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like verbatim said that. I was like, "Yeah, I don't really care like what kind of happened." I mean, I didn't say that to him, but I was just like, "Yeah, I'm still gonna go train. Like, it doesn't
Right.
change my opinion on anything." Um,
Yeah.
and that might not be something that really like translates to people that don't have these goals, you know,
Right.
and that's also okay, as long as you're doing your thing and you don't have a problem with it and you're not really hurting anyone in the process, it should be okay.
Yep. And so to kind of make a point off of that is you do have to remember that not everyone sits in the same kind of world as you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we talked earlier about how we look heavily through the bodybuilder lens, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for whenever or whatever goal you have, is when you have a goal and you're really set on it, you tend to look at everything through the lens of accomplishing that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, the people that want you to do something, bless you.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Oh, a lot of times, the people that want you to do something, they don't see through that lens.
Mm.
So they just don't understand, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. There's been a lot of circumstances where, and you said that you were fortunate enough to kind of have not that many people kind of rub the grain, go against the
Yeah,
grain, so to speak. I feel like based on your friend group and the people that are around you, friends and family, both, like if you find that you're in a friend group where, and generally speaking, your friend groups are probably all doing the same thing. Like, I forgot what it is. Birds of a feather flock together. That was
yeah,
super lame,
something
but yeah,
like that.
it's so true. And I feel like if you don't have an atmosphere of friends that are pushing you, or if you have a group of friends that's even worse, they're convincing you to not do something,
Yeah,
or they're giving you reasons to not like chase after this or chase after that. If they're not motivating you in some way, shape, or form, you should probably distance yourself at least a little bit and find some people that align with your goals and that share the same aspirations as you, that want to talk about the same things as you, that want to do the same things as you, because it's like night and day difference between, being told that you can do something versus being told that you can't do something and the outcome that occurs. And I think, and in my opinion, like if you where your focus goes, your energy will flow. So if your focus isn't on these things that you're trying to accomplish because you're getting dragged in other directions because your friend groups are making poorer decisions or they just don't care about what you want, then you're wasting energy that should be flowing into this thing that you're trying to accomplish. So, like, if you put yourself in an atmosphere where everyone is gung ho about bodybuilding and they're all trying to put on mass and they're all trying to get stronger and they're all trying to improve the amount of information that's going into their brains, then it's very easy to get hooked on that too and to also come aboard that train. And, it's just a much better atmosphere to be in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to that point, that's one of the main reasons why it's so hard for people to make a change. Like losing weight, especially if it's major weight loss, right? It is so difficult for them to make that change versus, us, we're in the realm. And so if we're like, we're gonna diet now, it's really not externally that difficult. Right? But someone who is, severely overweight and they've recognized that they need to make a change, it is multitudes harder for them to be successful because everyone that they're surrounded by does not follow those general goals. Right? Doesn't live the lifestyle that it takes to make that life change.
Yeah.
And so they aren't only forced with doing the things that they have to do to be successful, they're also forced with having to overcome the people around them not adding to their success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And
Like,
so
yeah.
when, as a coach, when you work with general population, you have to keep that in mind that they're not only responsible for taking care of what you give them, they're also responsible for combating whatever external forces are coming at them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they haven't lived in the realm of bodybuilding or fitness or any of that stuff. And so I wish I could give advice on what to do in that situation, but I don't think my advice is very helpful for most people, because my approach, which is awful, is just fuck them, just leave them.
Yeah, block
Like
out the noise.
they are no longer in line with your goals, and so if they aren't on board with supporting you for that, then you just leave them, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit well with a lot of people
Yeah.
because they've made these friendships over, many
Years.
years, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly they have to just tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. And it's
Because,
usually not even like telling them like that. It's just like,
right.
get.
Yeah, right. And so, that's my approach has always been, if you want to move to a different circle, you have to walk out of your circle,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But I think for most people, that's not a strategy that can feasibly work.
Yeah. Some people, yeah, that's like just diving head first into that cold water versus
Right.
like stepping like tiptoeing in. Kelsey
Right.
would always say, if you like always, she like just recently started saying this, which is great because she's usually like she errs on the side of like not negativity, but like sometimes there's a lot of questions that are up in the air. Got to answer all
Sure.
the
A lot of
questions. But like,
ifs. What
but she
ifs?
actually did. Yeah, she said something really cool, and it was like if you don't change your input, you won't change your output.
That's right.
If you don't change your environment, nothing will really change. And I think that's another thing is like when people get into this, especially normal pop, like you were kind of saying, you have this giant atmosphere, this giant environment around you, internal and external. And
Yeah.
just going to the gym, I know it might be out of the normal, but just like because you're in a different environment, but you're only in there for like an hour,
Right.
maybe 2 hours. but then you're outside of the gym for the other 20, 24, whatever the hell. And 27, we've got 30
Math.
hours in a day, so we could do whatever the hell we want. But like, we spend a very small percentage of our time inside of the gym, and then it's really the atmosphere outside of the gym that really is kind of, really needs to be paid attention to as well, because you've got these friend groups and you have these habits and you've got this atmosphere, the environment of your house that is still most likely, um, the propensity for your old environment to continue to do what its thing is still there, unless you kind of change it. Unless you change the friend groups, you don't have the cookies on the counter, you now put them on the top shelf, or you stop buying cookies altogether. It's like you have to change these things. You have to either tiptoe or you got to dive in. You have to change something. Otherwise, you won't get the change that you're looking for. And just going into the gym isn't enough, you know?
Right.
Just kind of like doing that isn't enough. If you go home and everything is the same, then not much is really going to change. So you got to really change that input to get a solid output.
Yeah, for sure. You have to change your,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so a lot of times, this is the last I'll chat on this for now, just so we don't beat a dead horse. Is when someone is in a relationship and only one person is on board, it is pretty much a recipe for disaster. Like probably 9.8 times out of 10.
Yeah. It's hard.
It
For a few reasons too. Oh my god. My
yeah,
biggest, like, dude, I won't lie, that happens to Kelsey and I. So like I only see Kelsey like once a month, maybe
right.
twice a month. But I always found that whenever I went there, this is no shot at you, Kelsey. I know you're probably gonna hear this. I love you. Whenever I go up there though, and this is my fault as well. Outside of last time, because I did go up with meals prepped, I had chicken in my cooler and everything. But
Yep.
typically, I go up there and I'm like normal human being.
Right.
Like I won't think about training. I won't even really think about my meals. Like that's pretty much that. And especially like previously, things have kind of flipped, and it it's gonna take it it's going to take you to do the things that you need to. And you have to be really transparent about what you want to your significant other. Otherwise, nothing, if it's not said, then it won't be heard. And it's not even going to be a thought that travels through their mind. But I find that when I tell Kelsey, like, hey, I really need to hit my meal now, that was like so much different from when we first started dating. It was kind of like, well, I want to eat too. And then she would like eat my meals. And I'm like, you can eat my meals. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I know that sounds fucking
It's
crazy.
fine. It's fine. I
But
only
yeah,
want
I
to
know that sounds crazy, but like that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, it's hard. It is really hard to navigate through that area if,
Yeah.
both people aren't prepping and going through that.
Yeah.
Because we would happily go to like McDonald's or happily go to like Starbucks or something like that and like grab
Right.
something outside of like, oh, it's chicken and rice time. That's
Right.
like totally left field for her. It's like, no, it's not chicken and rice time. It's like time to watch some Netflix or something and like kind of chow on whatever we want,
Right.
which you got to find a happy medium. I handled the last time I went up there though. I handled it really well. Had my meals, cooked chicken. We ate them.
Yep.
Everything was fine and dandy. Came back up actually, not down. That's the other thing. I usually come back and I'm like down a couple pounds, and then my next workout's like shot. My sleep is shot. Like
Yeah.
I've been getting better.
Yeah. It's really hard um to aggressively go after goals when you're in a relationship and you're not both going aggressively after like similar goals, um or at least living the same lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
um so my advice to normal population, if anybody listens to this, is that if you're planning to hop on board and chase, a weight loss goal or something along those lines, really see if your significant other is willing to do it with you.
That would be cool. Yeah.
So well, Haley and I have a set of clients, and they decided to do it together, and it has been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what they've accomplished together, and because they're both, they're both working with us, so we were able to structure their diet similarly, their training similarly, and what they've been able to accomplish has been above and beyond what we were expecting for at this point.
Mm.
And I think a big part of it, and they've told us that a big part of it is because they're able to do it together, and they're, again, it's that environment, those external factors
Just about
are
to say,
then
yeah.
they're so heavily limited if you live together and then you both have to eat chicken and rice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, if you're in a situation where you need to make a life change and you're serious about it, and you love your significant other and your other significant other loves you,
Mm-hmm.
you really need to express to them why this change is important,
Yeah.
and then ask them to come on board with you.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to help you progress that much better. It's going to limit your external factors, which is
Yeah.
going to and seriously multiply your other parts of your life
Mm-hmm.
that are going to make you successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Definitely plays into the atmosphere part of things. Having those
yeah, it's
people that are
huge.
pushing you and rooting you on and
Yeah.
going through it with you is really crucial. And if you don't have someone that isn't on board, it's not a fuck 'em situation. And especially if they're your significant
Right.
other, because you can't really say
Yes.
that. But
Right.
at the same time, you do have to be brutally transparent about your goals to them to let them know, like, hey, I'm probably going to be eating when you're not eating. And it doesn't mean I don't
Right.
love you. It just means that I
Yes.
have to hit this meal, and that's that. Or I'm going to the gym and I'm going to be training for 2 hours. I'm not going to be here.
Right.
Everything,
Yeah.
you know,
If they aren't willing to come on board, you need to be transparent and, you know, structured with what you tell them, and that you are going to do this,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it is selfish and it has to be selfish.
Yeah. This is a pretty selfish sport.
Right. And even if you're not bodybuilding, right? Weight loss still needs to be selfish,
Yeah. Very
because
egotistical. Yeah.
because someone an external factor, so we'll just say people for now, they can say anything they want about your weight loss, or tell you, well, it's okay if you eat off one meal.
Yeah.
Anything that they say has no value until, or has no effect until you act on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to be incredibly selfish with what you act upon,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the willpower to go out to a dinner with friends and not eat there because you know it's going to be off your meals, then yeah, go ahead and go out to dinner. But if you also know that if you go out to dinner and there's no possible way you won't eat a bunch of bad food there, then you have to make the choice that you're not going to go out to dinner,
Yeah.
right? You
Mm.
have to make the actions and choices that align with your goal,
Yep.
right? No matter what anybody tells you. So
I
that's
agree.
that.
Yeah. Pretty much.
um,
Like, I guess one more thing would be if you are on the other line of this and you're listening to this and you're that person who has someone who's really into it, do your best to not agree with them, but to convince them that they're on the right track and that you're okay with these things and that it's okay for them to go off meal or it's okay to go to the gym. Be supporting, because I'll be completely honest, the way that my relationship with Kelsey has kind of evolved through the bodybuilding lens, much different from when we initially kind of started off, because it was like, oh, you're gonna go train for 2 hours, like that's weird. Oh, you're gonna like eat a few meals, like more than the normal human being, like that's weird. Or like,
Right.
why aren't we eating together? That's weird. Or why would you want to go to bed at like 10 o'clock? Let's stay up till like 2 a.m. That's also
Right.
kind of another
That's a
thing as
big one.
well. Yeah, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
But it's like all of those things are really hard if you're on the other side and you're trying to accomplish these goals, even if they go without being said inside of your relationship. But the point that I'm getting at is just make things as easy as possible for these guys while they're trying to do what they need to do, because it's hard. Even when you're not saying things like, oh, you should eat with me, I already have in the back of my head, I feel guilty for not eating. Already in the back of my head, I feel guilty for training during some time that we might be doing something. Or already in the back of my head, I feel guilty for not staying up with you till 2 a.m. and kind of having a good time. You know what I mean? So it's like I do have those feelings in the back of my head. They've gotten a lot better because I know that Kelsey kind of aligns with the things that I'm already trying to like move and groove with, which is really awesome, and I'm really fortunate for that. So thank you, Kelsey. Shout out to Kelzo if she's listening. But it's definitely been a really long process, and I still have some of these feelings inside of me where, like, why don't I just, why do I have to be so hard with this stuff, or why do I have to be so tight, or why can't I just go to this, that, the other? And I've gotten a lot better with it, I think, just because going back to like the auto regulating and the kind of like intuitively eating, the better you get at that, the easier things become when you're with that person. And the other thing I would also say is that I only see, and I'm in a very like special situation, I guess, where I don't see her that often. So just like it's almost like a mini vacation, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I have to be smart with it. I can't just like completely slack off and not hit my meals or not
Right.
get enough sleep or, this, that, the other. Like I already told you, like I didn't train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But next time, see what I
Yeah.
did though. I told Kelsey last time I went up there. I was like, "Hey, next time I'm probably gonna be training with Kelsey." So now, or yeah, with Brady, and so now she's hopefully gonna be a lot more receptive to that, and she won't be as like whoa, you're just like gonna go train, like yeah,
Right.
mm,
Yeah, it's a long road um of trying to understand each other
yeah,
if you aren't on the same path, right?
hmm
No, you don't have to be on the same path, but if you choose to not do something together, you should try to work and accept what the other is doing, especially if they're trying to make a big life change,
yeah, yeah,
right? Um, so that got deep into relationships.
yeah. From Thanksgiving to relationships,
Nice.
I'll take it.
Well, we'll probably end up talking more about relationships and bodybuilding and kind of
Yeah,
how they work together and how they don't work together. And,
yeah.
we'll get deeper into that, but probably not this time.
hmm Just as like a
Um,
reference, and I'm not trying to get biblical on us, but I saw this thing. It was like the Bible will reference like itself like a bajillion times over. Like the amount of times that it like loops through different like
yeah.
whatever stories or whatever, like it doubles back like a bajillion times. It's like similarly with this, and I'm not really like a religious guy, Grandma. I hope you're not watching this. But like similarly, like in this bodybuilding realm, like we're going to be doubling back on things on these topics that we've probably talked about, and it's because they're so crucial and these things
Yeah.
do overlap with each other. So it's just kind of like it's just a part of that. Like all of this stuff is heavily intertwined. It's
Yeah.
really hard to just kind of think
Everything
about
is
this stuff.
so related and has to work together
Hmm
for the sport to actually work
Yeah,
and happen.
exactly. Yeah.
Because in a vacuum, all a bodybuilder has to do is train and eat
hmm
and sleep.
Yeah.
But when we leave a vacuum, we now have to have, relationships with significant others, with friends, with family. We have to, most of us have jobs that are outside of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So there's so many new factors, and so much overlaps back and forth with what we talk about, and just living in this world.
Yeah.
um, but we've been on for an hour, so we got about 30 minutes left.
Yeah, we got a
Um,
little bit.
I wanted to ask you, do you have any bodybuilding idols? Like, is there anybody in the bodybuilding world that you've looked up to, and maybe past present kind of thing going on, or have you
You
always
know,
just kind of been your own realm?
I was always like, I don't know why, but Frank Zane was one dude that I really kind of looked up to in terms of
Classic.
aestheticism and like kind of just like what I thought the epitome of like kind of bodybuilding like would look like. I know that things have been kind of blown out in proportion. We can probably talk about that in a different talk, like old school versus new school.
Yeah.
But I actually posted that in my story today. I kind of briefly mentioned like I used to look up like I used to spend hours looking at like these old school bodybuilders, you know, I, Frank Zane,
Hmm.
Columbo, um, like dude, and obviously way more, but these names are slipping me. But I can just see them right now.
Right.
Like Antoine, I think it was, is one of them.
He's
There's a
still
lot of
around.
guys. Yeah, he wasn't really like like Frank Zane era, but he
No.
was a little bit older, I think,
Yeah, he's
or
pretty old.
a little bit later. And then you like get into like current bodybuilding. I guess it would be like, there's a really good this dude that I really look up to, amazing poser. Um, I can't believe his name is slipping me. It's the reason why his name is slipping me is because I haven't really paid too much
Classic?
attention to this realm. I'm
Is
sorry.
he classic?
He is, yeah, he doesn't really compete though, but just the way
Uh,
that he goes about his posing, well, he does compete, but not like we won't see him with like Phil Heath or anything like that. Or like, fuck, what is his name? Um, if I can remember it, I'll come back to it.
okay.
Um, but yeah, my final answer, I guess, will be Frank Zane. That
Okay.
is someone that I definitely looked up to in terms of posing and just how aesthetic he looked. Definitely looked up to that.
Gotcha. Is
Yeah.
there anybody that you like kind of really like watching now?
I yeah, I actually well, I mean yeah, if we're gonna go current with things, the dudes that I really like to keep an eye on, I really like James
Oh,
Hollingshead.
dude, James is the best, man.
Yeah, James is a
I've
boss
I've had a couple of small conversations back and forth with James, and
with James,
with James, yes.
like in a DM.
Yeah.
What you talk about, boy?
Dude, he's super awesome. Like,
He's like totally fine with DMs and like he'll get back to you.
yeah, man. He's super,
Yo, that's
super
crazy.
nice.
Yo, that's
Um,
awesome. I'm
but
gonna shoot
yeah,
James
I
a
mean,
DM.
James James is incredible, first of
Mm,
all. Um, on so many different levels.
yeah,
His mentality, his dedication to what he does, are just above what you see from just about anybody anymore.
yeah,
Yeah. On top of that, the dude is so strong.
yeah. I
Okay.
know.
Like,
Yeah,
he is stupidly strong,
yeah. Mm,
which I greatly appreciate. And he's not afraid to move
no.
some weight, like at
Like,
all.
no. All those guys in like the trained JP atmosphere, dude,
Yeah,
highly respect all of them.
for sure.
Um, but
Um,
James is one of the guys that I've definitely kept my eye on a little bit closer, almost than Jordan at this point. Like I watch more James than I do Jordan now.
yeah, I do too. I do too. Um, and probably the other amazing thing from James is just how much he's grown as a bodybuilder in the last year. I mean, so from his time working with Patrick now, Patrick Tor, for those who don't know, is James's coach, and the way that they've transformed his physique and his look is insane.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
man's come
he
a long way.
he honestly has just become a beast,
Hmm.
right? Like, he's arguably a top tier bodybuilder now. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna see him on the Olympia stage this year because of COVID. Um, but 2021, I seriously expect him to. I think he'll comfortably be top 10.
Yeah. He just took first in
No.
some pro title, I think, right?
So he won his last two shows. He
Yeah.
won
Yeah.
Chicago. Chicago? I think Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just won the British Grand Prix.
Word. Yeah. He was like he competed like right down the road from me. Like last year, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I forgot where, but
Huh.
he was here. Like, dude, I remember watching him like literally 2 years ago, and this is when I started to understand like his mentality and kind of where he was going, and I could just instantly see him. And much like I see Nick
Yeah.
going really far, I could see James going really far. And to see him like come to this pinnacle of his training right now. I mean, he still is probably going to continue to blow it out of the water, but like
Yeah.
just to see him get to the point where he's at right now, knowing that it's nice knowing that I was right. Like thinking that like,
Right.
yo, this guy is going to be fucking
Well,
huge.
I think that's the power of recognizing, you know, a proper mindset, right?
Hmm.
When
Yeah.
someone has the right mindset for something, it's it's almost inevitable
Yeah.
that something great is going to come from them,
Hmm.
right? So when you can dig in and watch somebody's mindset and their approach, you can generally get a pretty good gauge on how far they're going to take it,
Yeah. Yep.
which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, so James is the man. Really cool dude. And I'm excited to kind of see what he continues to bring, especially if he doesn't do the Olympia and he kind of takes this time to be, because he's already qualified for the next Olympia.
Cool. I didn't know
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, so
I don't
with
really
his
know the
win,
rules and stuff like that. I won't
yeah,
lie.
with his win at the British Grand Prix, that qualified him for next year's Olympia.
Gotcha. Cool.
So, which means he can have a monster off season right now.
Dude.
Uh,
Yeah.
which it'll just if he takes it, um, it would be really really cool to kind of see where that puts him.
Yeah.
You know, it would be cool to see him crack the top six
Hmm.
in in the next Olympia, and I think he's fully capable of it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, this
I
year's
think he's
Olympia is very interesting.
yeah. It was cool seeing James, honestly.
Yeah.
I thought it was really dope seeing James. Bro, did you see the end of that when the Giant stepped out though?
Yeah.
Dude, I was like, "Fuck," like this the Giant is like a
Yeah.
giant.
The the other James.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Bro,
so
he's also pretty big.
he's
For being
also
so
I
tall,
mean,
he fills his frames out really
he's
well.
I'm pretty sure he's 6'6".
Jesus.
And so to do what he's done at that height, and I mean he still has plenty of room to fill out his frame,
Yeah.
which is expected.
He does fill it
But
out really well right now.
yeah, but I mean considering those things, he is just I mean his physique is insane. You
Hmm.
know, he still has a really tight waist.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of muscle on his body currently
Hmm.
is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think he stepped on stage at like 290.
Really?
Yes.
Damn.
Like it's
Dude.
he's
290.
yeah, he is a big man.
Yeah, dude,
Um
seriously.
so yeah, kudos to I
Yeah.
forgot that James's last name. But on Instagram he's AKA the Giant.
Yeah, that's like really what I know him as, the
Right.
Giant. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a really cool dude.
Word. And
Um
I figured out that guy's name, by the way. Pete
yeah,
Hartwig. Pete Hartwig.
Pete Hartwig.
Yeah, he's just a really good like old school bodybuilding poser. Like
Gotcha.
very classic look, very classic poser. Um I don't know if you know this guy or not though. Let's see. 1 second. I don't know. Am I allowed to like show his content on here?
I think so.
That was Pete. But the
Okay.
way that he
Yeah, yeah,
poses, he is, in my opinion, an amazing poser. Like the way that he goes about his routines,
Mm-hmm.
he has solid routines. I actually have a favorite like routine that I think is also his favorite as well, but it's more so like it's like a performance almost. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not like jumping around or anything like that.
Yeah. But
Um,
he's creating images
yeah,
and flowing and yeah.
really great flow. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if I can find the video, he's got really good flow.
Yeah. If you
But
find it, send it to me.
yeah,
Um, one of in the posing aspect, I got light coming on me from my shades. If I stand over here, look at that.
like just a couple beams.
Yeah, I gotta like scoot over a little bit. One of my favorite posers currently, his name is Terrence Ruffin.
Terrence,
On Instagram, he's Rough Diesel.
RUFF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, he, one, he's just a really cool dude.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he's working with Joe, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Um, but his one, I think his physique is incredible.
Yeah.
I think he has a beautiful physique. I mean, his
Hmm.
lines are gorgeous,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to see him step back on the classic stage and battle it out with
Yeah.
C-Bum and
Yeah.
Breon.
He's
Because
gonna be up there with them.
I think so.
Dope.
I think
Like
over
competing
the
against them. He
yeah
definitely has the
yeah.
potential.
So he's classic guy. Um, I I think over the next couple of years, we'll see an Olympia title from him.
Hmm.
He's just, I mean, outside of his physique being gorgeous,
Yeah.
is
Yeah, he's got some great shape.
yeah, I mean, he looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, his posing is, I will say, it's the best posing I see in today's bodybuilding.
Hmm.
You should watch some of his routines. They're really powerful. They have such good flow, and he's just really an incredible poser.
Yeah.
That's something that he loves doing, and so it is.
Do you
He's
pay
he's one of
attention?
my favorite posers currently.
Yeah. It looks like yeah, he has a really great shape one, and he can definitely present it with the
Yeah,
way that he goes about his posing.
yeah,
He also seems like he enjoys like more classic posing too.
right. Yeah, so he competes in classic, right?
Cool. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If we leave posing and um, I just talk about bodybuilders in general. I love James. Super great
Mm,
dude. Favorite of mine will always be Luke.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Luke.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. I actually in my storage unit gym, I have a giant Luke banner in there, Juggernaut banner.
Yeah.
Um, remind me to lift some heavy shit.
Mm.
But yeah, Luke is always a favorite of mine. Always will be. Um, And then, if we go back a little bit, it's funny. The people that have won Olympias are never really any of my favorites.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. I like Jay. Jay's a pretty good guy. I like how hard he works, right? I mean, he still works incredibly hard to this day. And I like the way that he kind of,
Talking about Cutler right now?
yeah. Jay
Yeah.
Cutler, the
Mm.
fridge, right? Yeah, I like how, he's an ambassador for bodybuilding and how he talks about bodybuilding. Um, that's why I like Brandon for how he represents the sport.
Mm.
Um, but I never really got too big into like their personal lives, I suppose. Like I love James, well, just because he's a monster. I love his mindset, how he trains, all of that stuff. So when I look at bodybuilders and try and think about who my favorites are, it generally comes down to not so much what they've accomplished or any of that, but more just about who they are.
Yeah,
You
and how
know,
they
and,
went about accomplishing what they
yeah,
did.
how they went
Yeah.
about it, how they represent the sport.
Yep.
And I find the ones that I love are all very similar. You know,
Yeah.
they just train brutally hard.
Mhm.
But outside of training, they're pretty chill vibes people.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just find that I resonate with them.
Definitely.
Um, so yeah, that's our bodybuilding idols.
Who's like the oldest school dude that you would say that you've ever looked up to? I think, and all right, most toxic person to look up to, in my opinion, might just be Ziz.
Maybe. I don't know.
And I know that there are so many people that support him, and it's fine, totally to support him, but I just think it breeds horrible people in the community. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I would
In
agree.
terms of the philosophy I think behind it,
Hmm.
I don't know. That could just be me. But
So, most toxic bodybuilder or most toxic in the industry?
most toxic influence in the industry. How about that?
Oh God. Actually, no. This one is pretty right there. Generation Iron. They are the most toxic thing in bodybuilding.
Who's a part of that?
I don't even know. I
Yeah,
just
because I know it's a movie, right?
well, so it's a couple of movies and it's a whole YouTube channel and it's a massive YouTube channel. And they represent the sport so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
All they take is just like little out of context clips to like degrade the sport.
Hmm.
You know, stuff like
How so?
uh there's a handful of clips of like Dorian Yates saying that today's bodybuilders suck.
Hmm.
You know, it's just they do these interviews with a lot of old school bodybuilders and then they just put up clips of them that degrade the sport today.
Yeah.
And so all they put out is this toxic negativity towards bodybuilding now.
Hmm.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
They
I
they
feel like
just
there's
they
a
don't
lot of.
they have
Yeah. I'm
this
sorry. Go ahead.
massive platform and instead of using it to promote the sport, they
Hmm.
just use it to degrade the sport and lean into the the mindset that the 90s were the glory days and there's nothing great anymore.
Yeah.
Like like
Hmm.
today's bodybuilders are incredible,
I agree. Yeah.
right?
I think the amount of information that's out there now and the mentality of it has definitely changed, especially if you go down the right path and
Yeah.
you're finding people with the correct philosophy to go across it. And who are we to say that we are instilling a proper philosophy or are following a proper philosophy?
Right.
Because there are a lot of things out there, there are a lot of different avenues to explore. But I would strongly suggest that you not just like look at someone who won an Olympia and then look at their training and then just try to train like them because you're not like them. You know, you should
Right.
really try to find some group that shares a very similar mentality. Like, dude, Joe, that dude, that rough diesel you just showed me,
Yeah, Joe Bennett.
yeah, Joe Bennett, very similar
Yeah.
philosophy to Train by JP. Small twist, but very similar.
Yeah.
That can translate straight into James that we also watch, like Kuba, the Giant,
Yeah.
um, Kuba's girlfriend. Like we look at all these people, and I feel like they're in like a separate pool with a totally different philosophy to like the new age, like get a pump bra, um,
Yeah, you know, the
chasing the
cable
aesthetics.
machine bodybuilders, right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And I also feel like the mentality goes beyond just like trying to teach people to like lift properly and then to overload that. It's more so like lift as much as you can, try to get this amazing shape, and then go show it to the world
yeah.
and then retire early. It's like that's like the mentality that I get from um newer age bodybuilders. I don't know. I just feel like they're
Yeah.
like quick, like really quick fuses, you know?
Yeah, I think part of that has to do with the fact that now you don't have to compete or even be good to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
right, in bodybuilding, because there's so much money to be made with, online and coaching and basic sponsorships and all these, avenues that come with bodybuilding and making money. Um, that they realize they don't have to compete anymore. They don't
Yeah.
have to be a good competitor. They don't. How people don't even need their pro card anymore.
No.
Like, like you need to have some sort of basic run of the mill physique that shows the general population that you work out and then sell them stuff.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's
Take
it.
my program. Yeah.
Right. And so we we see way more of that now because it's so much easier to accomplish that
Hmm.
than putting on 150 pounds of muscle,
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
right? Like
So much
you
easier.
could you can put on 20 pounds of muscle and then sell programs for the rest of your life and make millions.
Hmm.
Or you can put on 150 pounds of muscle that's going to take you 20 years and then compete the whole time, maybe win, if you've done it right,
Yeah.
and make
Maybe millions again.
maybe, but highly unlikely from competition,
Hmm. Yeah. No,
right?
it's like
It,
you will have earned the affirmation to make millions after that, I
right.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah. You know,
way more people now have the ability to be mediocre and make money.
hmm
And so that's what we see a lot of now.
yeah. And
Um,
and their drive is much more in external than internal.
right.
Like people aren't really doing it for themselves as much as they are for other people.
Yeah. Yep. So that stems from toxicity.
Yeah.
Those people are toxic too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on the opposite side of the spectrum, who do you think are good people to pay attention to?
um, in it's kind of a difficult question to tailor to everybody that's listening because
Hmm.
there's a lot it's going to be people that you resonate with. I can't be like you guys really need to go listen to James
Yeah.
because if you don't resonate with James and what he does, it won't make sense to you what he preaches,
Yeah.
right? Um, because James is so hardcore. Like I don't even think the dude seasons his chicken. Like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't season his
Yeah.
chicken at all.
Yeah, he's kind of crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No,
He's very
he's
crazy,
he's
actually,
got a couple
which is
screws
good.
loose.
Yeah, more than a
But
couple.
that's why he is who he is today,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
so, but I can't tell people go follow James. Um, he is the greatest person in the industry to listen to,
Yeah.
uh, because if you don't understand that couple screws loose mentality, then you're going to get nothing from him.
Hmm. And don't get us wrong either. These guys are very smart in terms of their training and their
Yeah.
exercise selection and their programming and everything that they
So
do.
so when I say screws loose, I don't mean IQ points, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
Um, when I say screws loose, I mean the ability to care about nothing but making it to the end and reaching every goal possible,
Yeah.
right? And doing anything and everything that it takes to be successful,
Yep.
right? That's what I mean by screws loose,
Hmm.
you know. So that's it's not an intelligence thing.
No.
So yeah, my favorite people to follow are, I like James, I like Fuad Abiad.
Yeah, I know you loving
Um,
them.
yeah. Um, I like Joe Bennett. I like Terrence Ruffin.
Mhm.
I like JP. I Ian Valier, or Valier. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. I think it's Valier.
Is this
But
Bumstead's husband? Lady
yes,
Bumstead's husband?
yeah,
Yeah.
Lady Bumstead's husband. I'm
Lady
like,
Bumstead.
nah, this is Bumstead's coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, yeah, Ian's good. He doesn't necessarily put out the same type of informational kind of stuff as much.
Yeah, I don't really
Um,
know his philosophy behind training and nutrition, actually.
yeah, but he's an interesting guy. He again, he likes ripping heavy shit. He is one of
I
the
could tell.
stronger bodybuilders.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's generally who I pay attention to, um,
That sounds pretty
for
good.
the most part.
Yeah.
I like Lane Norton.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's he's a smart guy. He cracks me up because he's a little bit aggressive sometimes, and
Sarcastic, yeah.
I think it's funny. But
Yeah. You listen to RPD
some
Mike as well? Israel?
I've seen some of his stuff. I don't follow him too heavily.
Yeah, he could be a little bit maybe too sciencey, but at least he goes through
Yeah.
the applicative side of things as well.
Right. Yeah. So like that's kind of who I follow. There's probably a lot more people out there that are great to follow, but I
Yeah.
really try to not spend a ton of time on social media and like absorbing myself with other people.
Hmm.
Um, just because I'd rather put the time and effort into myself,
Yeah. Yep.
right? There's so many things that I have to do on a daily basis that I really don't have the time to just like death scroll through Instagram or
Yeah.
Facebook or any of that stuff.
Hmm.
A lot of content that I consume is YouTube because I can watch that while eating,
Yeah.
right? Eating or while making food.
Hmm.
But when it comes to, social media posts, I don't really spend too much time on that. Just
Yeah.
because it's really easy to find yourself caught in like a 2 hour scroll. And if I waste 2 hours regularly, I'll be so far behind on the things that I have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm good for like two, maybe three 20-minute videos.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not even gonna say three. 1 to 2 20-minute videos a day is something that I'll typically try to crush.
Yeah, and so with the people that I listed, right? Those are people that are trying to put out informational stuff. So I
Hmm.
really kind of take that
Yes.
as more of like education time,
Hmm.
right? Because I don't I don't want to just waste my time that I'm using. So if I'm gonna watch YouTube, I try and gain something educational of it or
Yeah.
out of it, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I watch the people that I do because I resonate with who they are, how they work, all of that stuff, how they train, and two, they are consistently putting out content that is educational and teaches me something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I know I can go to their videos and learn something.
Hmm.
Oh, another person that I really like um, is Seth Feroce. Big fan of Seth Feroce.
Seth Feroce. I've seen that name thrown around a few
Yeah,
times.
he stopped competing a little while ago, and now, he's one of those guys that I respect. I mean, I respect him as a bodybuilder. He was a very, very good bodybuilder.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember you mentioned this guy. Yeah.
yep. But I almost respect him more for his work ethic. and how hard he works and how much he cares about the people around him and that kind of stuff. So, um, you know, everybody that I follow, kind of, I try to gain from them a little piece that I can add to my life.
Yeah.
So I try and round out the people that I listen to, and it's like, I sit in my house most of the day. I really don't spend too much time being social with people, so I don't have much of like a social circle.
Mm-hmm.
So, when they say you are the 6 people you surround yourself with, um, those are like my 6 people.
Me, myself, and I is
I
3
I
of them.
just surround myself with content creators that I connect with,
Yeah,
and like those are my people that drive me to be better and that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
definitely.
I don't have very many friends, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
I'm your friend Brady.
I am a little bit lonely.
You have friends
Oh,
here now on the podcast.
yes, on the podcast. You guys are all my friends.
Yes.
Only if you rate and review and share.
And inquire about coaching. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about like adding tools to your tool belt and also just trying to not get led down the wrong path, which is something that is very easy to do in this like industry, if you want to call it. It's so
Yeah.
easy to get wrapped up. And I talked about this maybe in our first episode, was just taking action before really kind of encompassing the philosophy behind it. It's like it's really easy to just go in there and just try to like fuck shit up, but it's like how you go about fucking shit up
Right.
is important, and
It
it's
is.
something that it's a mentality that you will develop after a long time of exposing yourself to great minds. And there are a lot of really inspirational people, but you have to be able, you have to filter out the really motivational people, which are really good. And by all means, really motivational people are amazing and they get really good results because they're so motivational and they can instill motivation inside of you to go push harder. That's
Hmm.
great. But then take that, run with that, and then also install a little program inside as well, outside of that motivational program, install another program that helps you fine tune that motivation and focus that motivation and all that energy that you have into your training and into your diet, into the nutrition, the habits, smart, like in a smart way, in a smart manner, so that now you're not just going in there and just blowing your knees and elbows out. You're going in there and you're doing everything properly the way that you need to, and you can still fuck shit up, guys. But
Yeah.
just make sure that, like, you know, the variables are there, the mentality is there, and you know why you're doing the things that you're doing. Because so many times I feel like people just start at the gate and they have just their weights and their diet and they run as hard as they can with it, and then they kind of like pitter patter out, or they start to plateau, and then they just keep going for some reason, and they don't expose themselves to anything else. There are no other great minds that are in this industry. They just kind of like leave it at what it is and they just kind of stop
Yeah.
there. I would always suggest that you try to find a plethora, find like a solid group of like 5 or 6 minds that all kind of share the same mentality, and take what they say, take those little tidbits and kind of put them in your pocket. It's like you've got
Yeah.
these, like a bunch of these like little back pocket tips, these back pocket mentalities that should all kind of be relative across the board as well. Like I'm a huge fan of relativity. So like when you hear something from, like, let's say it's like Israel, if you hear from something from like JP and they're in a, like, it's like a context situation, take what they're saying, run with it inside of that context, and then try to apply it elsewhere, or translate it into a mentality or philosophy that you can kind of have for yourself, and then you can carry that into the gym or into your nutrition and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And invest yourself in people that are going to educate you, right?
Yeah.
Always be seeking knowledge. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
collect collecting tools doesn't mean you always have to use them,
Yep.
right? But they are good to have for when you need them,
Yeah, exactly.
right? You know, every time you get a new tool doesn't mean you have to use it, but
Hmm.
when you need it, it's going to be good to have.
Yes. Yeah. Well said.
It's like trying to change a tire with a hammer.
Mm.
You know, you could probably try and change a tire with a hammer, or you could change a tire with a tire changer.
They have
But
those?
you're not but you're not going to try and, change your spark plugs with a tire changer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
a tool is only useful at what the tool is purposed for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, don't just throw all your tools at a single job.
Mm.
And but have tools. Having tools is good.
Yes. Yeah. Having as many tools as humanly possible is definitely the best case scenario opposed to having zero tools and not knowing what to do.
Right. Yeah. My dad always told me the man with the most tools wins.
Hey.
He meant that literally. But
Figuratively also works.
also works. Um, but yeah, you do have to know when to apply those tools,
Mm.
which should come as part of getting the tools. But sometimes you're handed a tool because you saw an Instagram video.
Yeah.
And so if you get a tool and you don't know what to do with it, probably take some time and learn where it should be implemented before you implement it.
Yeah. And why you're implementing it and things like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Learn the full purpose of the tool before using
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think on that note, I gotta eat. You gotta eat.
Truth.
We've been in here for an hour and 40 minutes.
Cool.
So
That's like our average.
yeah, that's probably about how long these videos are. Probably
Yeah.
sometimes they'll be longer. We there was a lot of things that we said we were going to talk about at the beginning of this that we didn't.
Yeah, I think we literally started talking about just one thing. Like we
Yes,
only hit like one
I know.
actual question and then we just kind of like went off.
Yeah. Um, but that's okay. Remember, if you do calves and you have to poop because of them,
Yeah.
be sure to let us know.
Yes, we don't want to feel alone.
And then ask your friends. Maybe put a poll on Instagram.
I think I'm going to.
And and let us know. To reiterate what we said in the beginning, if you guys could like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, we'd really appreciate that. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast sites, a rating review seriously goes a long way, and it really helps us so that more people can kind of find this information. And thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with episode 4, and yeah, and we're just gonna keep rolling. Probably we'll put up on our own Instagram pages at some point asking you guys to hit us with some questions. So if you want to ask us questions that we can answer directly, directly within the podcast, make sure to give our Instagram pages a follow. Those links will be down in the description. And then we'll try and be better at answering more than one question in a podcast.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So maybe we'll do an episode where we seriously Q&A it, and we just try and crank through some questions for you guys. So we'll probably be putting those questions up on our story soon, and make sure to give us a follow and ask some questions, and we'll go through them.
Hey.
Alrighty, man. You go eat. I gotta eat, and we'll chat later.
I will catch you later, buddy. Have a good day,
All right,
man.
man. Have a good one.
Peace.